Before the lights, before the fame, before the night he forgot the lyrics to his own song on live TV, Silas Silk. Harper was a boy with a busted cassette player and a dream. He grew up in a forgotten neighborhood in Baltimore, where music didn't just echo through cracked windows. It was how you survived. Old soul records, boom-bap hip-hop, gospel choirs at dusk. It was all in him. His mother sang in church. His father left before he knew what a downbeat was. At 17, Silk was already producing tracks for local rappers. At 21, his mixtape Lace and War blew up on SoundCloud. Sharp lyrics over smooth, nostalgic beats. He became the voice of the streets with a poet's tongue and a hustler's wit. By 23, he was signed to a major label, touring Europe, front page of Rolling Stone under the headline, Soul's New Son. But then came the fall. Silk wasn't built for the machinery of the music industry. In a world of handlers and contracts, he wanted art, not algorithms. He fought with his label over creative control. They wanted bangers, he wanted ballads. They wanted features, he wanted freedom. That tension metastasized into self-destruction. The drugs came first, weed, then pills, then lines backstage between sets. It numbed the noise, helped him sleep when the crowds went home and the silence screamed. Then came the fights. Hotel brawls, a smashed guitar over a promoter's head in Berlin. He punched a journalist in LA. Got arrested in Atlanta with a gun in his glove box and a half-empty bottle of promethazine under the seat. The fans started to turn. His Instagram went from millions of likes to floods of "Get help" and "RIP soon." His sophomore album, Broken Glass Choirs, was a commercial disaster. Overproduced, underpromoted, barely coherent. Critics called it a slow-motion car crash in 4/4 time. Silk disappeared. For a year no one saw him. Rumors said he'd checked into rehab. Some said he'd moved to Ghana. Others whispered he was working as a janitor in a church. The truth: he was living in a beat-up trailer behind a dive bar in Cleveland, working nights mopping floors and writing verses on napkins. There was one regular who kept him sane. Lena, the bar's open mic hostess. A former jazz singer with a rasp like smoked velvet and a habit of quoting Baldwin when drunk. She didn't care about who he'd been, only who he could still become. She handed him a guitar one night and said, "Stop hiding. Play." And he did. Just one song. No auto-tune, no backing track. Just a man, a guitar, and pain turned into poetry. The crowd went still. Then they clapped. Not like fans but like people who understood. He started playing weekly. Word spread. 2 years later, Silk returned. Not to stadiums or award shows but to vinyl. His independent album Ashes and Orchids was raw. Stripped down, nothing but voice and soul. NPR called it a masterclass in vulnerability. Rolling Stone begged him for an interview. He declined. He donated the first 1,000 copies to youth music programs. Started a foundation for kids in Baltimore. Mentored up-and-coming producers on YouTube. Said in a rare podcast, "If your gift takes you further than your character can carry, the fall will kill you." Silk never chased fame again. But it came anyway on his terms. Slowly, honestly, quietly. Today, if you wander through East Baltimore on a summer evening, you might hear it. The soft thump of bass, a verse from a kid who learned to rhyme by studying Lace and War, a church choir practicing a song he wrote. And sometimes, in the back of a smoky open mic, sits a man in a hoodie, scribbling lyrics on napkins, sipping water. Still writing. Still healing. Still singing. Lena never asked about the past. That's why Silk trusted her. But the past had a way of showing up, uninvited and barefoot, bleeding on your carpet. It came in the form of Devin Price, his former manager, who walked into the dive bar with a smirk and a plan. Devin had tracked him down, lured by rumors of underground sets so raw they made industry heads weep. "Let's do it right this time," Devin said, sliding a manila folder across the bar. "No label. No suits. Just you, me, and full ownership." Lena didn't like it. "He's a salesman. You're not a product," she warned. But Silk. He hesitated. He still had the itch. Not for fame but for recognition. The validation of knowing he was still relevant, that his voice could fill more than alleyways. He signed the papers. Lena stopped coming to his sets after that. She didn't say goodbye. She just disappeared like a verse he forgot how to finish. The comeback tour was small. Indie venues. Candlelight sessions. No big budget, no stage theatrics. Just storytelling in melody form. Silk was finally singing the songs he wrote in that trailer. About addiction, abandonment, hope. Critics praised his raw honesty. Spotify playlists exploded. NPR asked him back. The world welcomed him like a prodigal son who finally learned to pray. But with fame came shadows. The old demons came sniffing. Stylists pushing image, producers chasing virality, collabs with influencers who barely knew his name. He played along at first, nodding in interviews, flashing crooked smiles for cameras. But the pressure started mounting. Old habits flirted with him in green rooms. And then came the night he found a Percocet in the pocket of a borrowed coat. He stared at it for an hour. Didn't take it. Instead he called Lena. No answer. A month later, Silk learned Lena had cancer. Stage 4. Diagnosed too late. She told no one. He only found out because she'd left a note with the bar owner. If Silas comes looking, give him this. The note wasn't long. You found your voice. Don't lose it chasing echoes. He sat with that for days. And then he wrote the most vulnerable song of his life. Lena's song. No chorus. Just verses. Just him and a piano. It was recorded live, one take, no edits. The world wept with him. Lena's song charted 1 in 11 countries. But that didn't matter to him. He played it one last time at a tribute show for her in Baltimore. Barefoot, lit only by candles, in the very church where his mother once sang. It was the first time he cried on stage. The crowd cried with him. And when the last note faded, he looked up and whispered, "Thank you." Years passed. Silk released music sparingly, but every song felt sacred. He taught at a music conservatory, mentored recovering addicts through songwriting therapy, bought back the house he grew up in and turned it into a community music studio. His name wasn't on billboards anymore, but his fingerprints were on every verse sung by a kid who thought they were voiceless. He never remarried, never chased stadiums again. But every now and then, a crowd would chant his name at a surprise show. He'd smile, a little sad, a little proud, and give them just enough. Because the music was never about the lights. It was always about the silence between the notes. When Silas Harper died at 61, his funeral wasn't streamed, but hundreds came. Kids from his studio, old friends, Lena's sister, even Devon. They played his demo tapes, the unreleased cuts. The unpolished songs he kept hidden in drawers. There was no eulogy. Just a quote written on the wall of the studio he left behind. Make noise. Then make it mean something. 15 years after Silas Harper's death, a girl named Zuri walked into the dusty little community studio in East Baltimore, holding a worn-out vinyl in her hands. The cover was faded. Just a silhouette of a man sitting on a porch with a guitar and cigarette smoke curling up beside him. The album, Ashes and Orchids. She was 17, the same age Silk was when he started making beats. She didn't know much about him, only that her grandfather once cleaned floors at the bar where that Silk guy used to sing. But someone online told her, if you're lost, if your voice is shaking, start here. So she did. She dropped the needle on the record. The first chord rang out raw, imperfect, honest. And suddenly, the tiny studio didn't feel empty anymore. Felt like someone was listening. Later that evening, Zuri pulled out an old notebook with water-damaged pages, left behind by one of the instructors who used to run the place. Inside were lyrics, quotes, scribbled thoughts. At the very back was one line, underlined 3 times. Truth, not fame. Soul, not spectacle. And she understood. Silk never wanted to be a legend. He just wanted to survive his own silence, and help others survive theirs. So Zuri wrote her first verse that night. And then another. And another. Somewhere, The echo of a rough, soulful voice seemed to hum through the walls.